So when you go out to take cuttings from a plant, how do you know what type of cutting to look for and what type of a cutting is going to root the best? Well, that's what we're going to talk about here today. I'm going to go through and show you what I look for in a cutting before I take it from the plant to know that it's probably good material for a cutting. Hey guys, I'm Dave with Growing the Home Garden. Today I'm in front of this viburnum. This is a Shasta viburnum, and I'm using it as an example here to show you the right types of cuttings to take. And this has got a combination of different materials on it. Some of it's perfect, some of it's not ready yet. And so I want to go through some of that stuff with you today. We'll take a look at this one. We'll also take a look at some perennials, and I'll just show you kind of what I look for before I take a cutting. Because one of the most important things is you take the right kind of cutting. If you take something that just doesn't work, it's not going to function well. It's not going to create roots. So we want to make sure we're getting the right type of wood or the right type of material for your cutting. So let's go take a look at some of these little branches here off of this Shasta viburnum so you can see what I'm talking about. So when I start taking cuttings, the first thing I'm looking for is what season of growth it's got. If you look here, you see this older brown material right there. You can see a little bit of a bump where the plant actually stopped growing last season. I'm not looking for that kind of growth. I am looking for the new growth that's up above and beyond that. It is this kind of growth right here. It's got a little bit of a greenish hue to it, a little bit brownish, and you can tell from here to the end of this particular branch that it's all new season growth. And so that's really what I'm looking for when I'm taking greenwood cuttings of like a Shasta viburnum, hydrangea, lots of different shrubs and plants. So that's what I'm looking for mainly, is that new growth on this end of the cutting, not the old growth down over here. It's possible old growth can root, but this is going to be your most viable material. So on this cutting right here, it's a pretty good looking cut. I've got the old wood down at the bottom. And as you come up the old wood, you've got 1, 2, 3 nodes. That's basically what I look for, is to have 3 nodes. And what I'll do is I would take a cutting from just below that bottom node on the greenwood. And nodes, if you're not familiar with what those are, they are the growing points along the branches. Each of those nodes is capable of creating a leaf, another branch. If this terminal bud were pulled, you would end up getting branching occurring down here. The other thing that they're capable of doing is creating roots. And so if you are in doubt about how to take a cutting or what kind of a cutting to take, just take a nodal cutting and you cut just below the node, and that point will be a good spot for roots to grow. Some plants can root along the internode, that's the area in between the 2 nodes. They'll shoot roots out right from the stem itself, but not all plants do that. So when in doubt, go ahead and take something that's a nodal cutting, and you're cutting just below a node. Now, one thing to note on this one, this top section here is a little bit too flexible for what I would want to do. So that little section here, I would cut off the top of it and remove that, and then just take the cutting from the lower portion right here. So in the end, I would end up with a 3-node cutting just right along that stem there and remove the extra flexible area. And with this terminal bud up here, you're just going to want to pinch those off. What that does is it sends a signal down to the rest of the plant to begin growing at those other nodes, which can help you with rooting as well as it helps with leaves and branch formation, like if you were pruning a plant. So this plant here is a boxwood that I propagated several years ago. You can go check out the video for that if you'd like to learn more about propagating boxwoods. But on this particular plant, it is too early for me to take many good cuttings of it. This growth at the tips is very soft, and it's way too pliable for me to actually get some really good cutting material off of it. So I'm better off on this one just waiting probably about a month before I do that. Boxwoods root very easily. You don't need rooting hormone or anything for them, but probably we're in May right now, so I would be thinking about doing that in June. And we are in a zone 7 garden, so you may have to adjust that depending upon where your location is. This plant right here is a green giant arborvitae. Arborvitaes root very easily, and they're very popular plants because a lot of people like them for screening. So on this particular plant, I'm okay with taking something that is a little bit more of a flexible type of stem. I'm going to come down again around 3 major nodes here, and we'll give it a cut. And we're going to just kind of pull off or peel off or snip off, however you want to do it, the major branches off of that one. And you can see here it is very flexible, and that's okay on this particular one. As you get more experience with various different plants and trying different things, you kind of get a feel for what's going to work and what won't. And in this case on arborvitaes, this kind of cutting will root just fine. I've got 3 of them that I need to get potted up here very soon that I did very much in the same way. This plant is Little Spire Russian Sage, and it is at the perfect stage for taking a whole bunch of cuttings. So what you can do is you come down along the stem somewhere and just make a cut. It will root from the internodes, so you don't have to have nodal cuttings on these. And I've got some more videos on Russian sage propagation, so you can go check those out if you want to go more in detail on it. But right here, what I'm looking for is a nice firm wood right here from the current season growth. All this is current season growth. I don't really want the little tip areas here because it's very flexible, so we get rid of that. But along this area, I can definitely do some 3-node cuttings if I wanted to do them nodally, but I've got potentially to do probably about 4 cuttings along this one Russian sage branch, and it's perfect. This type of growth is perfect to make some really good cuttings from your Russian sage. This is a different Russian sage. This is more of the species. It's not a cultivar of any kind. But what this is the flower stalks are beginning to show right here. Now, if you are okay with cutting off the flowers, you definitely can root along this area here, especially at this stage where they haven't really pulled a lot of energy into the plant. But this could potentially be a whole bunch of cuttings off of that if you just trim off the flower stalks. When you take a cutting, you do not want to leave the flower stalks, and ideally you want to do it before it even starts to bloom, because that gives you a lot more energy inside the plant for it to complete its rooting process. But you definitely can take a cutting from something like this and just trim off the flowers to make a better cutting. When it comes to perennials, it's almost impossible to completely avoid having to cut off flowers at some point. Some of these bloom so prolifically, like this salvia, that you just have to cut off the flowers if you want any chance of taking some cuttings. And that's okay, because these need deadheaded at some point, and it's getting very soon to that point where a lot of the flowers are starting to fade, and it'll be ready to get a little bit of a haircut, and then we'll go in and be able to take some cuttings from it. So I'm going to leave this a little longer before I start taking more cuttings. I've already got about 10 to 12 cuttings that need to be potted up that are rooted. So I'll be working on that here before too long. So this is Little Henry Itea, and you can see here where it has just kind of finished up its blooming. It's starting to go to seed right here. We have 3 of these in our front garden area. It's a native plant, and it's really beautiful in the fall. It's got some really nice foliage. But on these plants, on these branches right here, you can see it's very thin on the ends, on the tips right here. The lower area down here looks okay to take cuttings from. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait probably another month, probably do these in June, and then take cuttings from it at that point when these have hardened off a little bit more. I'll just have a better chance at rooting the cuttings at that stage. This is another viburnum I've got called Onondaga. And what's really nice about this one, it's got this maple leaf look. Burgundy colored leaves start to come out when they're fresh. It does change to a green when you get more sunlight on them later in the year, but they look amazing. The flowers are just amazing. But on this particular one, what I wanted to bring up here was the distance between the nodes. There is probably a good 4 inches between these nodes right here on this stem. That is probably not ideal. So you'd probably want to look for foliage on this or branches that are closer together. This will probably still root with that, but I would take not a 3-node cutting. I'd probably go with a 2-node cutting where I'm using the bottom node and the top node right here. So on this one, this top section is a little bit too pliable still to take a cutting from. But what I'll do is I'll come down over here. I'm going to snip a little past the node. I'm going to snip off the bottom area from the node. We'll do a slight angle cut to it to create a little bit more surface area on that cutting. We'll remove these lower leaves right here. And I don't need any of this top section off of that, so I'm going to cut here. And I'm going to actually remove one of those leaves as well. We'll trim that up a little bit better. And this will be the cutting. So it'll have a nodal cutting at the bottom, a cutting right here where the leaves are going to sprout from, and then the rest of the leaf up there. It should root down here, and it's possible it may root along the stem area some, which hopefully it does, and that makes a better, stronger root system for that viburnum. And this plant is Powis Castle Artemisia. It's a very good plant in the garden. It's gotten really large here, which I love. And it's very deer tolerant. Nobody touches this one. So what you look for in this particular plant is, again, like kind of the Russian sage, you're going to take a cutting that has got some pretty good stems on it that are very solid, and you can trim off some of the more flexible areas from it and just peel this stuff off the sides and leave about 2 nodes on top. And you can tell here it's got a pretty good um, thickness to it. It's probably a little smaller than a pencil size on that right there, but it roots very well. They are great plants to have around. I just love them. So guys, I hope that's helpful to give you a general idea of what I look for in cuttings. Now these are just greenwood cuttings, mostly spring season type things. If I'm looking for hardwood cuttings, I'm looking for something totally different. So just keep that in mind. The different times of the year are going to necessitate different types of cuttings. Your greenwood cuttings are going to be taken through the mid-spring to summertime, and your hardwood cuttings are going to be more of a winter season sort of thing. Semi-ripe will happen in between. So depending upon the type of cutting, you are still going to be looking for that first year growth. That is kind of the key component of it because it's got the most amount of auxins inside those stem tips off the branches. So that's exactly what you're going to be looking for, is that first year growth. So hopefully these tips are helpful. If they were, hit the like button, subscribe, and we'll catch you next time on Growing the Home Garden. Thanks for watching.